Good morning. Today what I'd like to do is put together a quick video on how to package applications for SCCM deployment using the Powershell App Deploy Toolkit. It's how we've been doing application packaging here at UMF for the last year. It's how EUT is currently recommending that you do it. And the team wanted just a basic video on that, so we're going to put that together. Depending on how the team feels about it, we can put together more advanced videos on things like editing MSIs when you get a MSI that has licensing needs or further configuration needs, preventing auto update, things like that. But basically, this is just to kind of get your feet wet. And I haven't had any time to prepare for it, and it's pretty much just like a first take thing, so I apologize if there's any stumbling. But I got to keep it and just roll with it. Just a note on environment. When I first got started in this, I was doing everything on a computer, a real computer, and I would constantly have to reformat it because of all the installing and uninstalling and deleting reg keys and stuff like that. I've since moved on to virtual machines because they have checkpoints, snapshots, depending on what you use for software. And just to take it a step further, I kind of offloaded all that work onto a different computer so that I don't experience that load as I'm working. And I just remote desktop in. So this is the VM server. I'm using Hyper-V. This is the machine that I use to install the applications and uninstall them. It's pretty much the most tortured Windows installation of all time. And I apologize for that, Packer. You poor thing. And then this is the actual lab image for the computer science lab. It's my current project. So I could do it all in here, but I'm trying to do final testing here and reformat this more frequently. Another thing about environment, I've moved all of my development work to a network share on UAD. So this is in UAD, Apps, Labs, UMF, which is where all of our finished work is. So these are all the apps that we've packaged in the last year for the lab space. And it's all using the App Deploy Toolkit. So far, it can handle anything I've thrown at it, and I've got some faith in it, so we're going to work with that. This is the development folder where we do our work. The reason that we're doing it here is I used to do it on the desktop of my packaging machine, but when I'd roll back to a checkpoint, I'd lose my work. Probably you wouldn't make that mistake, but I did, so I thought I'd just share that. And I can get to this network share from any computer, whether it's this computer, the VM server, the actual machine I'm working in. And I've got some garbage down at the bottom there. I don't like this remote desktop client. All right. So anyway, in the development folder, I've got some resources. Feel free to grab them if you need them. Orca is the tool that I use for editing MSI files or making MST files. Reg Scanner is a tool that will tell you the changes that happen in registry from one moment to the next. It's free. It's not a silver bullet. There have been a couple of times when it missed some things and I had to catch them myself, but it is useful, so I keep using it. Visual Studio Code, my personal preference for code editing, it's just the same thing as Atom or Sublime. You could use Notepad++ or the development, the PowerShell ISE. It's all the same. And that's just a Windows update that sometimes I have to install if I want a remote desktop in from another operating system like Chrome OS or Linux or Mac. But anyway, and this is the application packager, the App Deploy Toolkit itself. That's a backup copy I keep one level up because sometimes I accidentally start working in there and I have to go back in time. So anyway, here's where I'm doing my development work. And today I want to do one MSI and one executable, ones that I already know are easy because I don't want this to get out of control. It's so easy for this kind of thing to get out of control. Every software developer is different. Every executable installs differently, which is incredible because there's really only like 4 or 5 common setup types. You know, like the inno, the install shield, things like that. But anyway, so we're going to start off with an MSI for Strawberry Pearl. So I'm going to copy and paste the deploy toolkit and call it what I'm about to package. And I happen to have that file already downloaded because I don't like the demo gods. So we're going to go in. So here's your basic app deploy toolkit, right? There's the files folder, which is where your setup files live, whether they're that one MSI or setup.exe, or if somebody wants a whole, you know, if you take a CD of files for some software, you just stick it all in there. Support files, that's sort of like your registry exports, which we'll go into later. If there's one thing I can give you today, it's the usefulness of that registry export. Sometimes app icons, other files you want to package with it, all go in there. The deploy application.exe, that's what does the installing and uninstalling. That's basically it. We don't have to do anything else with that. That you can ignore. That is the PowerShell file where we make all of our alterations to the package, not the software itself. We'll do that somewhere else. But as far as automating the installation goes, this is where we do that. And then this is the manual, and it is so good. It is such a great manual. I am frequently looking back on it, and I recommend leaving it open for reference while you're packaging when you get started, because there's all these built-in program commands and environment variables, and they all serve to save you time, be fail-safes. So if I were to right-click and edit on this, it would open in ISE. You may like that. It's got the color coding and everything like that. I've been using this for a long time, and I used Sublime before that and Atom before that, so this is where I feel at home. But now I have a Strawberry Pearl folder because we created it over there, and I'm going to open my PowerShell file here. And this is, I think, where a lot of people get kind of mystified. It looks kind of intimidating, but it's really simple, and after a couple of iterations, it just starts to feel like paperwork. So we're going to do, this is Strawberry Pearl, probably a project, I think. The app name is Strawberry Pearl. Don't know the app version yet. We'll fill that in later. So this is just today. And this is year initials. And after we do that, we can just scroll right down to this block here, perform installation tasks here. Alright, so we have 2 commands to choose from. I'm going to put the installer in the files folder here. And basically everything comes down to either execute MSI or execute process. And don't be afraid to like go look at somebody else's package and copy and paste their code, because why waste time, right? So our action is going to be install, and our path is going to default to the files folder. Another one of those beautiful things about the App Deploy Toolkit. And our path is just going to be the MSI, and that is why I love the MSIs so much. It's that easy. So we're going to go into our packaging machine here. Yeah. And we're going to try to install that just to see if it's working. Alright, so we're going to open up PowerShell. I like to open it as admin, so that's the only UAC prompt I get. I don't bother to turn UAC off because I reformat so much. Alright, so we are just going to go ahead and run that. And you're going to see the beauty of the App Deploy Toolkit. We get this nice banner with a logo. It's giving us a status. And the idea here is that we are installing this package silently. No interactions. So this is showing a status bar, but it won't ask me, you know, do you want a shortcut? Do you want it in the usual spot? Do you want fries with that? None of that stuff. It's just going to install. No questions asked. And when you do an executable, it's the same idea. Basically, we'll get to that. But let's just watch this fail or succeed. I'm going to go ahead and get ready for the next step. So our virtual machine now has Strawberry Pearl. Installation complete. Come over here and check. Strawberry Pearl. Lovely. So now is the time to open regedit and find the uninstall. Of course, it opens right up to it because I've done this before. But here's where you can find the uninstall reg key for almost every application. And there are definitely some snowflakes out there. But under the local machine, software, and 64-bit packages will be under Microsoft, Windows, current version, uninstall. And then these are, I'm pretty sure this is the MSI identifier. And then these are, you know, going by their name. So what we're going to do, just real quick, I'll show you where the 32-bit ones go, but we're going to export this whole key to support files. I'm going to call it uninstall.reg. The reason we do this is for a lot of reasons, actually, but before we get into that, 32-bit applications will put their uninstall under local machine, software, WoW 6432 node, and then basically it's the same from there on out. Microsoft, Windows, current version, uninstall. And there's all of our 32-bit stuff. And this is, you can't see where I'm pointing, can you? This is all Office. You can like safely ignore that whole block if you're trying to find your program. All right, so the reason that we do this export is if you go and look at that, it gives you the current version, and we use this value right here, this registry key value, we use that in SCCM to detect if the software is installed. It's probably the most efficient and bulletproof way of detecting it. SCCM can detect on a variety of methods, including files and registry keys, and MSI Magic, we'll just call it Magic. But these registry keys, and especially display version, because it will help you detect if, yeah, it's installed, but is it the right version, you know? So we keep that because later on, we're probably going to want to add this to SCCM when we no longer have Strawberry Pearl installed. And we don't want to have to install it just to find that. The other thing that this gives us, I will show you when we're doing executables. but it's even better, trust me. All right, so where are we? We've got our app version. I'm going to paste that in here. To be honest, I don't even know if this gets used. I think it might just be for documentation purposes, but I know that this stuff gets used. Okay, so now we need to uninstall, right? Well, we're using an MSI, so it's blissfully simple. Uninstallation task here. So we're going to go up to our installer. We're going to paste this down here below, even though I'm going to change most of it. Alright, so action is now uninstall. And you can do this. This will work. Here, I'll show you. Here's how you do an uninstall. Just do space uninstall as an argument. But there's a better way. And sometimes it can take a little while, but there you have that. The better way to do it, however, is we will install it, and we will look at our registry entry. And you see this right here, that's our MSI code. I'm going to copy that, and we're going to change our path to that. And there's a couple reasons that this is better. Primarily, you no longer have to have the installer available to do this. This will rely on what's actually on the computer. So if it's detecting that the application is there, then you have this code, and that's all Windows needs to uninstall. It no longer needs to have the installer. Maybe you don't have it. Maybe you've only got a new version. Stuff happens, and this is a failsafe. And just for the sake of brevity, we will take my word for it that that works, because this is taking too long. But even though I said that, I don't want Strawberry Pro, so I'll uninstall it. Okay, so next what we're going to do is we're going to install an executable file while that happens in the background. Our executable file is going to be Sublime text. So we're going to copy paste. We're going to call this Sublime. And we're going to get the installer from my downloads on this machine. And I'm going to paste it. There. There, yep. All right, so back here. Sorry if I'm jumping around a lot. I don't mean to make this hard to follow. But, so here's our Sublime copy. We're going to do our paperwork. And Sublime is a slightly non-conforming package, but not so unconforming that it's irrelevant to other programs. And we'll explain all that. Alright, so now to install an executable. And as you can see, Strawberry Pearl did uninstall. Execute process. Path. And I love that you can copy and paste back and forth between virtual machines and remote desktops. So handy. Oops. Oops. And instead of action, what we have for processes, we have parameters. And this is basically what you would pass the installer via command line in order to install this silently. So while you're trying to figure out what that might be for a program, one thing that you can do is you can go into that package, right into the files folder, and you can just run that executable and then try passing it the argument, because ultimately these are all command line friendly installers. I mean, for the most part, I've definitely run into some that aren't, but they're supposed to be. Let's put it that way. But here's where I want to show you an awesome trick Devin from EUT showed me, how to pick up the uninstall flag. And there are so many. There's lowercase s, uppercase s, quiet, silent, very silent, dash dash, no really, please be silent. I mean, everybody's got their own idea of what this switch should be. For basically, it's called an unattended or silent install switch. To find out what your program wants, one thing you can do is just install it the traditional way, the next way. Then you can go into regedit and go ahead and export this while you're there. And we get to find out if Sublime is 32 or 64-bit. I usually start in 64-bit because they're fewer, and I deep down am like kind of hoping everybody moves to 64-bit someday soon. But since I'm here, and I'm just I'm flipping through these ones, looking over here to see what kind of names are flashing up. And I'll just refresh this. Oops. Okay, so no Sublime there. Yay, they're 64-bit. And close the WoW 6432 node. And we're going to slip into Microsoft, Windows, current version, uninstall, and Sublime Text right there. They named themselves. Cool. So we're going to export this. Now, what's cool about this is right here, most programs will give you the quiet uninstall string. And what's great about that is that usually what they have for a switch on their uninstall is the same thing that they use for their install. So we're just going to guess that they're consistent with themselves, and we're going to use that as our parameter here. And while I'm at it, I might as well make my uninstaller. And here's where we can start to use the glory of the App Deploy Toolkit. And I grab this as my path. Paste it here. It came with quotes, didn't it? But this may fit 99% of systems. But if I go environment program files, now it will fit 100% of environments. And that saves me from having to write out a bunch of logic and figure out how to do that through PowerShell. I can just do it right here in the App Deploy Toolkit. And that's all outlined in the document which I highly advise you to look at, but having it up while we do this isn't practical for the sake of the video. So we're going to go ahead and try our uninstaller first, because I have it installed now. And this may crash and burn. Looking good though. There's so much trial and error in this process. For the sake of the video, I intentionally minimize that. But let's make sure we don't still have it. We don't. Now we're going to test our installer. Nice and silent. And there's the blank text. So that's the basics on how to do this for executables and MSIs. I wish it were that simple. Next we'll show how to deploy these apps in SCCM and the more advanced topics in packaging.